Hi, I'm Riley,
I am Evan,
and this is the Grey Line Podcast.
In today's topic, we will be covering the following. Where did we come from? Even though it is a massive topic, we will do our best to try and get through as much of it as we can.
Right.
So, where would you like to start, Riley?
Well, I think we'll start off today with the Big Bang and how we all became in this universe of ours. Um,
The
so
Big Bang existence.
yeah, I watching a lot of videos and stuff on it when I getting into these theories and stuff and wondering about how we evolved and how we became um on this planet. And it all starts right there, the Big Bang. And it's, one of those intriguing things where a lot of people have talked about that's the start of our universe. That's the start of everything. So, it's a big topic about, how,
Yeah.
how that all came to be, like organisms, you got like so many things that, are out there in space. So looking at how that's all set up and how it all started, is a big aspect of how we are now. And I like that idea of it because it's kind of like, in a way, almost sci-fi, but maybe almost in a way like it was meant to be. But,
Yeah.
it's it's one of those things where, there's so many different aspects of that, like evolutions have came through, or, different how did that's the big thing is like if the Big Bang happened, there were so many things that even happened with that, like planets evolving, different solar systems, how that all took effect while this was going on, and how we became the center of all of this.
Well, you got to
And
think too,
today,
from the Big Bang, like in terms of positioning within our universe, we're relatively young compared to where the Big Bang supposedly took place. So, I
yep,
mean, if you're looking at, say, the Big Bang taking place about 13 to 14 billion years ago, and the human race is relatively young in comparison to that, what is there
exactly,
closer into that initial explosion or catalyst point?
yeah, yeah, like, and that's yeah, and how that's my thing is like, was there things that were even um civilizations even before, as we're in the younger, and it's still going as we're going, as I was just about to say before, we're still seeing this effect from the Big Bang. And out of that time frame, we've only been a smidge of that. So it's intriguing to know like what was there before us, and like aliens, have they always been around since then and have inhabited other planets or wherever they are coming from. So it just gets to the point where if there's if there was any other species out there, you'd think there would be, with us in that sense, and we're not just alone in this young universal place in that sense.
And that's not even taking into
And
account the possibility of things like time travel or alternate dimensions and other aspects like that. So, if you're looking at an alien race that's potentially billions of years old and technologically advanced beyond all sort of comprehensible, like
yeah,
what are we looking at here? Like it's so much potential for other races and beings to be out there. So surely at some point, even with the vastness of the universe, we should know that they're out there. But for some reason, at the moment, we don't.
yeah, and that's intriguing because it's there's so many things that people have seen in their lifetimes, or lifetimes before us and all that stuff too. So it's like you look at it like almost like there has to be some other, you know, aspect of something going on that had start like I don't know what caused the Big Bang, and there's like a lot of different aspects about that. But when you look at it too, if the Big Bang when it started, obviously it evolutionized a lot of different ways that um I guess for everything to take shape, whether it's species or us or anything like that. And I think the big thing about it too is why. You know, it's a big question that I've always heard people say you never really get a good answer on because a lot of people don't know why. So that's kind of my thing. It's like we can know that there might be something out there, but I want to know, why did this all occur, and why is it that we're all so spread apart in a vastness of space, and humans are, almost so fresh that we're just getting into the whole space race and trying to get to different planets now. So, it's kind of neat in that sense how that all came about from just
Also,
one
though,
massive.
if you think about some of the theories that have popped up over the last however long, you've also got to think about the fact that a lot of people do believe that we are even the second or third iteration of the human race. So potentially, even though we feel like, or that we know that we are quite young in the grand scheme of things, there is also the possibility that we are basically a recreation or even like a fresh start for a race that had existed for billions of years already. So, I mean, if you're looking at, say, grey aliens, just as an example, there are a lot of people out there that believe that they are a future self, they're a future us. So, does that mean that there is a
Yeah.
past us that was highly technologically advanced and something has happened that, or that we are basically a direct result of that race.
Yeah. That's a good point. Um, Going back and like even history of our planet, um, and that goes for other planets out there. We've had a whole different aspect of hearing about different, the giants and all that stuff. But it goes further on, sort of thing, because like yeah, obviously DNA is a big thing, and we all have it. Even our universe has this DNA, as I call it, because it's like a long line of the Big Bang and everything that's been built as it's going and going. And as evolution goes, as you said, it we must be somewhere in the long line of alien and human hybrid, basically.
That's a whole nother topic in itself, the human alien hybrid. And I suppose it depends too about if you think about what type of aliens we're talking about here, because there are so many different types. I can't even keep up with the amount that I know now, and I mean, it makes sense that there would be multiple different races, different evolutions, different parts of the universe. But also, what kind of gets me is the fact that everything that we know about the alien species is they're all very human-like in nature. They're all that same sort of evolution, bipedal, humanoid kind of creatures, which again makes me think, is all connected? Because if you had an alien species that evolved outside of this loop, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's
Yeah.
going to look anything like us or be anything like us.
Yeah.
Kind of,
Yeah.
kind of a
This is true.
conundrum.
Yeah. And that's, yeah. That goes too, like, because after um all that happened and you have all these different planets, obviously every planet you go to, if there were life on it, would be totally different than what we are used to being on our planet, right? And like our planet, it has gone through that kind of a stage. So it's kind of nice, it's neat to know that out of all of our history, there's been so much evidence of past histories, even off our planet. You know, you look at Mars and stuff like that. So it makes me think that down the road or behind us in the past, I guess, there must have been so many different cultures and civilizations out there that we haven't even tapped into. And like you said, we must, we must be here for a reason. And I feel there's got to be a really good one, because um, you can't. We all obviously get this intriguing idea of there's got to be something else out there, you know.
Yeah. I think it also makes me kind of question too, when we're talking about the different races, and they're all sort of similar in appearance and physiology. Is it more like maybe these particular races are different? I don't know, different versions of the human self. So if you think of, like, say, reptilians, for instance, and how vastly different they seem to be from, say, the greys, but they're also very similar in terms of, they're both humanoid and they have some similar characteristics in terms of their physiology. Is it possible that at some point in our past or future that the human race has experimented with gene splicing and they've like that split off in two different directions, and so you've got, like, say, one scientific community that have gone down the path of blending humans with reptiles and it's created the reptilian race, or have you got like the evolution of the greys, which is just like the straight up evolution of humans?
Yeah, I mean, like you like in that, yeah. Um, like the Greys they're the ones to be known to abduct and experiment, right? So reptilians, you know, they're more of a hiding um species in that regard, and there's been lots of theories about them as well. But yeah, I think when it comes down to it, like we were talking about how we've came to this part of our history now in the universe, and there must have been some sort of splicing done. Um, there's evidence of that too back in our history. So it comes to a point where we must be here for the reason of something that has been lost in history years ago, and we've just never been able to tap into. And there's got to be a reason why um this would occur and for us to be here. And it could be for the reason of maybe a dying off race, and we were put here to help, with our DNA to support them to be able to carry on. Why I believe most of these are ancient history, there had to have been some tools, some, elaborate tools that were not created by us. Because honestly, I look at like the pyramids of Giza. Even as far back as Anunnaki, or not the Anunnaki, but the Sumerians. Like these guys were unbelievable. Like in some of these places, like some of even the pyramids cannot be built with just our cranes today. So these massive feats that happened, and it was just humans that did it. I don't know if I believe we just did that with a rock and a pickaxe. It's one of those things where I don't know. It just unbelieves me.
Yeah, I mean, you think about too, like the amount of manpower it would take to manually move all of those stones just for the ancient pyramids alone is insane. But they're not even the biggest stones on the planet that have been moved by human hands either.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why they got these theories about logs and stuff or rolling them, but I can't see that, or using mammoths, which, you know, I almost, thought maybe because, it wouldn't take much for them to take a bunch of mammoths from somewhere else. Because really, they were dragging stone from one area over, and they even in some other countries, they were dragging stones from miles just to build their temples and their, it unbelieved me that these guys could do that with this much manpower, and I could barely lift a 10-pound stone. Just,
But then you've also got like Easter Island where they've got the big Maui heads, and you've got to
yep.
think about those as well. Like a lot of those have, well, essentially bodies that have been carved out that are buried in the ground, that island has very little in the way of trees, and from my understanding, never really had much in the way of trees. So that kind of takes that whole log rolling theory out of it. Plus, a lot of their
Yeah.
legends, I believe, describe levitation as the method used to move those stones. So, how do you explain that?
Yes, that's a good question. Yeah, actually remember reading up on that. That's that's why I say, like, obviously we were. I always feel like, um when this all started, like we must have got, created the Anunnaki. Supposedly, basically, kind of, I don't know if it was them that actually put us on this planet, or how all that worked, and how we're all connected in that sense. But I know that when you move on towards that, the levitation, for humans to just be able to do this on their own, when there's no way, unless we had some sort of help to do this, because the first humans ever to settle here, like Neanderthals, when we, I just can't see that we would be able to know, like, to know how to cut things so precisely, to move these blocks, or, stones in a way. Like, I know there was different mechanics. I know there's a story about a guy that actually has a bunch of stones that he set up himself using this
Yes.
supposed levitation. And I thought to myself, how? Some of these stones are unbelievable.
Well,
And
especially because he never actually gave any information to anyone about how he did it, and I've heard stories of things like acoustic levitation and things like that, but at the same
yes,
time, it's like it's hard to wrap your head around.
that's my thing, is that you can't really, yeah, yeah. I'm always one of those things, you can't really, you have to see it to believe it, sort of thing. But sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes you kind of have to look theoretically at what's going on, like acoustic sound. As me, I play music and stuff, so knowing the different sounds and frequencies and stuff like that, this could be a possibility. Um, like the Egyptian pyramids used acoustics, and I guess they could pick up basically our magnetic fields and stuff, use the energy. So that's why I believe that somewhere down the line, some sort of knowledge was given, and yeah, humans were able to use their technology to do these feats.
Yes, that's yeah, I can't even the amount of information that there is on this subject alone is just absolutely mind-boggling, and to actually come across something that makes sense and is coherent is really difficult because it's just so vast.
Yeah, and it's really hard to put a judgment on how things were done, especially when you weren't in those eras, right? Like, you'd have to be there to see what was going on. And honestly, a lot of the cultures, they all believed in one god at that time too, which was the serpent. So to me, in aspects of that aspect, they obviously were communicating with something with more understanding than what we had at the time, which obviously made it today today for us as humans. I don't think we would be in the same situation now if they hadn't helped us out, or if they did, or whatever, in that sense. So yeah, it's like a lot of things that you have to really consider when you're looking at um how this all played out.
Well, I suppose that
But
comes
yeah,
to the next portion of the discussion, and that comes down to if we're actually here more for observation or an experiment by extraterrestrials instead of having been an evolution or a natural occurrence.
yeah, well, you can start this one off, I think.
Where to start? I mean, it's again a massive topic. It's if we are in fact an experiment, we could be an advancement of quite plain and simply an animal, or even like we were talking about before, like a gene splicing. So, maybe we're part of this alien race and we've been turned into what we are today.
Yeah, yeah, I'm 100% with that. I always believed, like, Um, one story I did hear, like I don't know who it was a while ago. I met some guy. He was telling me because he was right into the whole alien topic and stuff. So I conversated with this guy a lot. But the Anunnaki's another big thing, um, where they brought us here, and there's been other stories about other races that brought us here and left us here to mine gold and all these other things. Now, that's been kind of broken up because really, if any race wanted to get gold or any of that stuff, there's so many asteroids out there. There's other places out there they could get this stuff. Earth is basically a tiny morsel of what they could probably get. So,
Yeah.
I look at like, is that what we were really here for, was just to help other races do things on this planet because there's even stories that, now these are big things I don't really talk about too much, but like there's like these other cults or whatever that's out there, um, that have been saving up all of this stuff, gold, silver to give back, and supposedly that they're supposed to come back and save us or pick us up and bring us back to our actual home. So there's like all these different stories about how we've came here and what kind of, it almost feels like it's sort of like a observation or kind of like how we're helping them advance with their technology or with their planet, I guess.
I guess observation sort of makes the most sense to me in as much as it's just a curiosity. I mean, we're a curious species, so we
Yeah.
observe animals and we observe nature and we observe the universe. I mean, the only thing that we haven't really observed, which is beyond me as to why we've never actually really done it, is the oceans. But for an alien species to, be curious enough, I mean, even if they're massively advanced compared to us, but relatively young in the grand scheme of things, like we were talking about with the Big Bang. Maybe they're just simply watching us to see how we evolve, and maybe applying those things to their own civilization. So we could essentially be lab rats for them, and we're just in a controlled environment to see how we react.
Yeah. I I can see that too. That's one of the big things is like we're here to be observed. That's I think that's why a lot of sightings happen is because they, are watching and seeing how we are and how we evolve, I guess, in that sense, um, as we live on Earth. It's funny because, like, we, the whole aspect of observation kind of goes in with the experiments because abductions happen a lot. And that's the whole thing is why these abductions happen. And obviously, I feel like it's because they, at some point, yeah, like you said, they're either creating a new race or they're advancing ours to make us better, in that sense. So I always look at that kind of thing too with the observation because they obviously are observing us on our planet, but they are also observing us internally in that sense.
I suppose
And
you can think
obviously when I
about it
watch,
from you can think about it from
no,
the
you go,
perspective of like we use like say lab rats as a test platform, right? So you can
yeah,
imagine from the rats perspective, they're in their little glass cage and they're just in their own little world, but then all of a sudden this huge hand comes out from the sky and plucks them up and takes them away, does things to them and puts them back. Like
yeah,
how could that not be possible for an advanced species? They come down in their ship, they go, yep, that one suits our purpose,
yeah,
grabs us, takes us, comes back, puts us back, and then sees what happens.
yeah. That's kind of in a nutshell how it feels in that sense. When you think about the whole situation, like, I also like to think that, they're doing this for a good reason, you know, or, you know, because our planet is not as stable as it used to be. So, this could be the reason we're seeing more of these sightings and more is because maybe they're trying to create another race to put on another planet to save our planet or our race in that sense before our planet goes. I only started thinking about this now because like, there's a lot of things going on in our world. And of course, you kind of think about that stuff, what's going on, and if we can't make it to another planet on our own, that's pretty much it for humankind. So I always feel like maybe aliens are helping us out, you know, by experimenting and maybe, you know, putting us in another simulated area.
Suppose that makes us like a an endangered species if that's the case, doesn't it?
Well, and that kind of goes back, how many times has humans actually been on like, goes back to the dinosaurs, really. I get an asteroid hitting our planet. I get that. But it just seems a little, you know, it just seems a little odd that right after humans were like pretty much in the mix of dinosaurs by the end there. So, well, Neanderthals anyway. But I'm just, that we're not. I don't believe that we were the only humans. I think there probably was other planets, maybe with us, just like you said, just a little different, like every other species of alien. So I think we were saved maybe from another planet and brought here. And now that this planet's starting to go, we might end up carrying on somewhere else. And with their help is kind of what I was getting, I guess, in that sense.
Well, it's kind of you know that movie that was out, when was it released? 2023, 65. I don't know if you've seen that one with Adam Driver, and
Oh,
it's,
yes.
the
Yes, I
premise
have.
of that is basically, he's transporting humans that are going to a
Yep.
colony, and hit an asteroid field, and they get knocked off course, and they just so happen to land on Earth. I mean, again, that is something that is a possibility, I suppose. You could think about that. Maybe there is an alien species, even like people talk about, under the surface of the Earth. Maybe the surface of the Earth was um, too hostile at that point, or something like that, and they were experimenting on the local species, so Neanderthal, to elevate them to a point where they could essentially come back up from the surface, or maybe they're trapped here for some reason, or there's 10,000, 10 million, there's infinite possibilities of what this could
Yeah.
actually be. But that movie is kind of like an easy explanation as to one of the many possibilities as to what has actually occurred.
Yeah. That's a good example, actually. That's perfect. Cause yeah, you're right. Um, Yeah, and actually, now that you talked about like that, I just was mind blown by that actually, because it's true. Like I like that. That's a good one, and that kind of brings up too like the point, um, with simulation. Could it also be that we're in a simulation? You know, we are communicating. And we have PCs that are, you know, doing their thing. But that's the thing is, are we in that kind of zone where we are already computed and we are just playing out what the simulation is playing out for us?
Does that mean we're like lines of code?
That's like the Matrix. That's
Oh,
kind of how I kind of look at it from that art kind of view. But that's I almost think what if the universe is just a whole program and we're just
if that's
evolving
the
in it?
case, I'm hacking my program so that I'm either rich or I don't have a bad back. That'd be great.
Isn't there a movie on that too, I think?
Yeah, that's
Somewhere I'd have
definitely
to
the
look.
Matrix.
Uh, but yeah, like you're right. Like there's a lot of things that in theory, um, you know, for this whole thing is if we are in either simulation or we're in experiment observation or we're used, you know, is it for the technology aspect or helping them gain materials for new technology? Because even now humans our human race, we have advancements that are so crazy right now that I don't even know half of them. They're starting to build rail guns, things that you don't really like. The stealth bomber is probably the best example I can say right now because that thing. How did anybody realize without having other technology out there that you could build uh, this plane with stealth technology where you know we didn't have anything like that in the 60s and how we've advanced from then to now. How fast was it for other races to do that in that sense? And um
big leaps
Is
in
that
advancement of technology. Although that also
yeah.
makes me think. I'm a huge fan of Nikola Tesla, and one of
Yep.
the things that never really came to fruition, as far as I could tell, though I think it was actually something that the government snaffled up and tucked away. But the Nikola Tesla death ray.
Oh,
My understanding, when he passed, the government actually came in and basically ransacked the room that he was staying in and took all of his notes. But all of the death ray information that we have, because it would knock aircraft out of the sky, and at that point we were just starting to use electronics. I think a lot of it was that it was some sort of like EMP style weapon that would mess up their
yep.
electronics and have them crash. And I think that is the beginning of that sort of technological advancement, because he, in his a lot of his explanations, had said that he was receiving information from extraterrestrials, from other beings. He would actually
Yep.
sit there and, almost like a 3D blueprint in his mind, would visualize these things coming into his mind and then apply them and build them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, like that's yeah. Like even Einstein, that guy knew his stuff, and that's what kind of makes me think like how much stuff did he really know, or was he extraterrestrial, But like you said,
Yeah,
but like yeah, like even now you see that technology being used on warships now, using laser technology to take out missiles and stuff. So obviously at some point, he knew things that we didn't, or was being told things. And that's where I think there's a lot of these people that are out there that have these visions, but they're given to them, and we make up this religion towards it. But I actually think it's extraterrestrials giving us this. They just don't want to come down here and converse with us. I don't know what happened in our history with species or whatnot, but I just think they're still feeding us, ideas. They're watching us. They're helping us, but from a far distance.
I
Now,
think, though, that that's by design, simply because the human race, as far as we go, we're pretty barbaric still, really, in terms of how
destructive.
we yeah, and I think that's a lot of the reasoning I come up with for extraterrestrial beings staying as far away from us as humanly possible, is simply because they don't want us hurting them. I mean, you see like pictures of the greys and things like that, and they're pretty fragile beings, but we're very
Yeah,
physical beings. So, we're developing things like nuclear weapons and things like that. And even though that's probably technologically backward for the sorts of technology levels that they have, they're not putting themselves at risk coming down to an aggressive species. I mean, we don't stick ourselves in the cage with a lion. It's not
yeah,
like I'm going to go and, go watch a lion inside their cage and not expect to get eaten.
yeah, exactly. Like, and well, even then too, like we've done some crazy stuff, come up with some different weapons that probably were not we were not supposed to come up with. Like a nuclear weapon is probably something that's devastating to any planet, and it's understandable why I can see that there's been interactions in that sense for with UFOs trying to keep nuclear warheads from going in the air. And I think that right there just shows you that they are observing us because they don't want to see us kill ourselves or hurt anything around or on the planet. Maybe there are other species on this planet that they know of. And if we do any damage here, we're damaging not just us, but them too, like the
Uh,
reptilians.
that also makes sorry, I just thought of something that was quite funny that I remember. Have you ever seen that movie, Lilo and Stitch, the kids movie?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
and Earth was a safe haven for the mosquito. That was the endangered
Yeah.
species. So
Yeah.
it's not us, we just happen to be here. We're just the food source.
Yeah. Right.
So it,
uh,
it, it kind of makes you think, though, like, we're full of self importance and think that we're amazing and all that kind of stuff. But maybe maybe the human race is not the target here. Maybe we're just in the way and we can't be wiped out because there's something that we're doing that's important. But, it may even just be the fact that they're not observing us, they're observing something else, and we just happen to be here.
A good point. Yeah. And that's the question is what, because like you said, even you just mentioned that we haven't even explored how, how many percent of the ocean,
I think it's
right?
like
So,
25 or 35% is like all that we have actually. I think it's not much.
and the rest of it, you really can't unless you're going to basically die. The pressure would be immense going down that far. And I can like, but they got drones and stuff now,
Oh,
so
wow.
it's progressing as we go. Technology is, and that's kind of where I'm going with that too. Is that even with the water, we're making a big advancements even then. So maybe we
Right.
will eventually someday down the road find out what's going on, and the reason why there are so many sightings, and what the reason why they're here in that sense, or have they been here this whole time and just moving us around like chess pieces in that sense.
Well, I just did a quick search on the ocean, and I said 25 to 30%. The ocean has actually only been explored up to 5%.
5%. Okay, yeah. I
5%.
knew it was somewhere in there.
Yeah, the ocean covers approximately 70% of the Earth's surface and it holds 99% of habitable space in the world. So
Yep.
that's a lot of unexplored territory.
Oh yeah. That's what I'm saying. And like we even have underground rivers under all of the land we're even living on. So even then, there could be things even under our feet that we don't even know that's even there. So it's kind of neat in that aspect to you know know that even just because they're observing, we think that they're observing us, but you're right. It could be observing something totally different that we have no clue, and we just think that they're here to attack us, or people have those off weird fears, so it's kind of one of those things where I actually would, if an alien showed up here right now, I don't know, I'd probably be scared as crap, but I'd want to know some answers. I don't know who wouldn't.
Every single one of those are such a massive topic. We can't cover that all in a single episode, but Riley and I wanted to just touch on these subjects for our first episode so that we can tick off all those topics on our to talk about list, and we can deep dive into them at a later date. But what are your thoughts on final thoughts on this whole topic there, Riley?
Well, you know my final thought on it is we obviously have been here for quite some time on Earth, and I think it's nice to find out, where we originated from and how we got here. And I believe, someday down the road, technology will advance more, and we'll get to understand maybe a little bit more of where we came from down the road. So I think these topics really do explain, a lot of how we ended up here and the theories of it. So yeah, I think it's great, and I think this helps us move into the whole podcast of helping to get into the whole alien aspect as we move further into the other topics.
And just as a little bit of a teaser for future podcast episodes, not that we've decided exactly what order any of this is going to go into, we do have other topics such as the WoW signal, the Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the London Hammer, nuclear war in history. We've even got things like Bigfoot, the Baltic Sea anomaly. There will be some paranormal topics in there because I'm big on the paranormal side of things as well. And well, yeah, I mean, we are going to be building a community on Discord. You'll be able to find that link in the description below. We will have a section within that Discord where anyone who's listening who would like to find out more about certain topics can suggest those within that that particular channel. We also will have ourselves a Ko-Fi account. If you're liking what we're doing here and you want to support us, you can either subscribe and help us on a weekly basis, or you can do a one-time donation, which helps us immensely. If not, we appreciate any of the sharing, linking, showing other people, putting on social medias, all of that sort of stuff.
Likes
And
and
likes,
subscribes.
likes and subscribes. Yes, because we're going to be podcasting on as many platforms as possible. We'll also be pushing it onto YouTube. So if you've watched it on YouTube, definitely share that with other people. Definitely hit that like and subscribe button. And of course, the bell notification. Also putting on old documentaries that I can find and things like that. And we'll be moving more into other videos on YouTube as well. So if you are listening to this on the podcast, head over to YouTube, check that out. And that is it for our first episode. How did you think we went, Riley?
I think this is awesome. It's a great episode. Awesome conversation. And I've actually learned a few things this time around.
I'm looking forward to our next topic, and hopefully we'll be able to push out. I think the aim is one a week at the moment, so we'll try and push this out. Were we doing it once every Monday, or were we doing it once every Saturday?
Yes. Saturdays. Well,
Saturdays,
your
okay.
Saturday.
So this first episode will, where are we? This first episode will then air on the 27th. Will be the first episode, which we'll be
Yep.
recording the second one before then. So every Saturday you can expect to hear a new podcast from us. Gives us time to do the edits and the recordings. And that's it from us. Thank you very much for listening or watching, whether you're on Spotify, Anchor, Amazon, or YouTube, or any of those other platforms. And we'll talk to you all in the next episode.
And don't forget, more on Gray Line, you can visit our YouTube or our website. Follow us on Twitter, and you can always support the podcast through Ko-Fi.